Well, again, we are glad that you're here today to worship with us on Father's Day. Before I dive into all that, I was handed a note. I need to ask for your help. When that truck gets here after church, we need about 5 or 6 men who could help us quickly unload the stuff that they bring, which are cots, and they bring all of their belongings in Rubbermaid boxes. And so it's all their clothes and all their things, and they move those around each week from place to place. And so if you could just help us, what I would do is I would just say this: if you could help us for really about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes after church, you could see Miss Robin. She's back there on the back row in the middle, and then it'll be up at that other building if you could help us with that. Before I dive into the message, I just want to say a huge thank you to so many of you that have showed your love and your care and your kindness this week through words and things on Facebook and those kinds of things. I really appreciate those of you who were praying for me, as well as many other folks, Dennis and the Martins this week, and I really appreciate those of you who prayed consistently for that. I really appreciate those of you who cooked and cleaned and did all sorts of things to just help serve that family there. There were a lot of compliments that came my way this week on behalf of our church, just the things that you guys had done and had ministered, and somehow people would come to me and tell me how great they thought it was and how great a church they thought you were for doing all of that. But there were 2 statements that were made by someone. If I'm not mistaken, I think it wasn't the same person. It was the same family, actually, though. One person said, "This is how Christians are supposed to treat each other. When we love and care for each other, we uplift each other, we try to encourage each other, we try to walk through the difficult times with each other." They said, "This is how Christians are supposed to treat each other." The sad part of that statement is it means that at some point in their life, they have seen when Christians didn't do that. And so I thought that was a great testimony. And then that person's wife actually said, they actually live out of town. She said, "If I lived in Perry, I would either go to this church or that other church." There's 2 churches that were really helping there. She said, I'd just go to the FBC or I'd go to the Vine. And just because of what she had seen, the love that she had seen poured out. And we know that it's really God's work, right? He's just working through us. It isn't anything good of any of us. It's just God's work through us. And when we open ourselves up to God's work, He can do some incredible things, and He can have some incredible testimonies, even through some horrible circumstances like He did this week. We are nearing the end of our Modern Family series, and we've covered a lot of ground. If you've missed many of the things, you may want to look on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, on our webpage under the media section, and try to catch up on some of those. We've talked about a lot of different things. We're going to be wrapping it up next week with a message that I'm really excited about, so hopefully you'll be here as we wrap up this series on that. Today, since it is Father's Day, I'm going to talk to the men. Ladies, you remember on Mother's Day, I spoke to you, but I told you don't get mad at anything I'm going to say, because on Father's Day, I'm talking to the men. And so I'm going to stay true to my word, and I'm going to talk to our men today on Father's Day. But before I dive into that, I want to recognize a couple of dads that are here today. I've got some gift cards here, and we're just going to see which dads may win these. First one is for the oldest dad that is here. Are there any dads that are here that are over 60? Slip your hand up, okay? Don't be ashamed. Slip it up. Is there 65? Okay, 3, 66, 67, 60. Just keep them up. 68, 69, 70, 71, 72. Now I feel like an auctioneer. 75, 5, give me 5. Do I hear 76, 76, 76, 77, 78, 78, Mr. Ron? Awesome. Come up here and get this gift card. There you go. It's a Lowe's gift card, but that's for you. Yeah, get you a new tool or something. Now I want to see the dad here with the youngest child. Now, you remember on Mother's Day, we made a philosophical, theological statement, right? We do believe that life begins at conception. So I'm looking for the dad that has the youngest child here today. The youngest child here today. Is there anybody that has a child 1 year old or less? Okay, I'll go backwards now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Jake, got you, buddy. Come get this. All right, there you go. Yeah. Now we're looking for the dad that has the oldest child. Not the oldest dad, but the dad that has the oldest child. So is there a dad here that has a child that is above 40? Slip your hands up. Keep them up. Okay. Above 50. Above 55. All right, so 51, 52. Oh, all right, Mr. Clower, this is you. There you go. Yes, sir. All right. And then finally, the dad that has the most children. We've been going through a growth stage here, so I'm going to start at 3. If you have 3 or more children, raise your hand. All right. I see 3 hands up. 4. Oh, there you go. 4. All right, 5. Jake, there you go. Man, if I could have kept going, you could have bought you a new mower or something, right? You know, there are a lot of different opinions in our society of what it means to be a man. And that picture has changed over the years in a lot of ways. Some of them good, some of them not so good. Some people think you're a man when you begin to make money. They say, hey, when you begin to make money, you're a man. And I thought about that this week, but little Johnny's lawn mowing service doesn't make him a man. Some people say, well, you're a man when you live out on your own. When you can live on your own, you're a man. I thought about that this week. I said, there's a lot of males at college on their own. They're not acting like men, they're acting like children. So I don't think that necessarily makes you a man. Some definitions of a man are simply based on the organs that you have. Then I thought about that and I said, well, all males are born with the same organs, so that can't be the definition of a man just based simply on the organs that you have. There are a lot of awards given out each year. I thought about this. There's a Sportsman of the Year award. I was never in the running for that one. There was the Man of the Year award. I was never in the running for that one. There was the Sexiest Man of the Year award. And then sometimes, well, y'all laughing at that. And then I thought of this statement that sent me sort of, I had flashes of, there used to be this person who would say, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And I think that was Ric Flair, so I don't know. Wow. So somehow our society has this picture of what it means to be a man. Maybe you're good looking, maybe you're an athlete, maybe you have different characteristics or do different things. And we have this picture of what it means to be a man. And I was putting together my own definition this week in preparation for this. And I said, well, if I'm smart, I'll go to Webster's and see what Webster says about what it means to be a man. And I was pretty disappointed because Webster's, I thought they were pretty sophisticated and in tune with everything. But here's what they said. Here's the definition of a man. You ready? An adult male human. I was like, man, that's all you can give me. A little further down, it did say one possessing in high degree the qualities considered distinctive of manhood. Now, I didn't give any idea of what those qualities were, but if you in a high degree have these qualities considered distinctive of manhood, now that sounds like a political definition or something to me. It says a whole lot and doesn't say anything, but so that's what Webster said. But here's my definition. I like mine better, and I'm going to give it to you, and you may like it, you may not. You can write it down or not. Here's what I think a man is. A man is a male. And I think it's sad I have to emphasize that. But a man is a male who is able to keep and fulfill his responsibilities and duties to himself and others. A man is a person who can keep and fulfill his responsibilities and duties not only to himself, but to others. I sort of thought about it a little bit more, and I came up with a different definition of a good man. Not just a man, but what makes a good man? And I have is a male who is able to keep and fulfill his responsibilities and duties to himself and others, and shows great character in doing so. So it's sort of a whole nother level. There are a lot of males in this world. There are some men in this world. And there are some good men in this world. Then I thought, well, I think it goes another level. What does it make what is the definition of a godly man? I mean, there's males, there are men, there's good men, but what's the difference for a godly man? Here was my definition of a godly man. A male who is able to keep and fulfill his responsibilities and duties to himself and others, and shows great character in doing so, and is an example of Christ-like love and care for all, because of his relationship with Jesus Christ. That's a pretty long definition, but I think it hits to the heart of what it means to be a godly man. And I think that many of you men are here today, whether you are already married or whether you are single or whether you have children or don't have children. I believe you're here today because you have a desire to know what it means to be a godly man. Maybe you're well on that track, and maybe everything I've said today is going to be like old hat for you, and you're already tracking with that. Maybe you've been thinking about it for a while. Maybe you've been wondering, what really does it take to be a godly man? Maybe you've been watching somebody else in your life, and you say, you know what, there's something different about that person at work versus all these other guys at work. So what are those definitions? And so I believe that is a great definition of a godly man. Someone who keeps and fulfills his responsibilities and duties to himself and others. He shows great character in doing so. And is an example of Christ-like love and care for all because of his relationship with Jesus Christ. Ladies, you may want to write this down, especially if you're single. If you're a female and you're single, you need to write this down and put it on your refrigerator. I would encourage you to get a tattoo, but if you did, you might want to get I'm just kidding. Here's what: not all males are men, not all men are good, and not all good men are godly. Not all males are men, not all men are good, and not all good men are godly. Some of us know that firsthand. Some of you have experienced someone who maybe by definition was a man, but yet they weren't a godly man. Maybe somebody in your life that was a man but wasn't even a good man. And maybe sometimes on Father's Day we think about some people in our lives who weren't good examples of that. Today I want to look at someone I believe is a very good example of a godly man, and that person is Joshua. Joshua is in the Old Testament, and his story encapsulates several books in the Old Testament. But I believe that Joshua, as we look into his life today, which is what we're going to do, I believe that we will see some of the keys of what it means to be a godly man. Some keys that you and I can put into play. Some keys that you and I can consider. Okay, Joshua was a warrior. I'm not asking you to go out and grab a spear. But there are some things about Joshua's life of being a man of God that we can look at, that we can emulate, that we can put into practice in our lives. And so I want to use an acronym today. I've been on this acronym kick for a couple of weeks. I want to use this acronym today and talk about what it means to be a man of God. What does it mean to be a godly man? And I want to use those three letters, M-A-N, and make 3 points about Joshua's life. The first thing I want to say to you, that a man of God meets with God regularly. meets with God regularly. It's sort of like if you say, hey, I want to be a doctor, but I don't want to go to medical school. Hey, I want to be a lawyer, but I don't want to go to law school. You cannot be a godly man without meeting with God regularly. You just can't get it by osmosis. You just can't walk through your normal life and think all of a sudden these characteristics of my life are going to happen, are going to be born in my life, are going to build in my life, unless you're meeting with God regularly. Joshua had a pretty interesting job early in the story that we pick up here in Exodus. He was Moses' second in command. He was Moses' second in command. And we're going to follow Joshua from his where we first pick him up in the scriptures. We're going to take several snapshots of his life and get to the very end of his life and see something that he says. And what I want you men to realize, and myself as well, is that in Joshua's life, he had several places that were defining moments in his life. He had several places, several situations that we're going to read about where he could have went with the flow, where he could have went with the crowd, where he could have went with society, where he could have went against God, where he could have done all sorts of things. But yet he didn't. And I believe because of those snapshots and those situations where he stood his ground and he stood up for even, that he is a great example of what it means to be a man of God. Exodus 33, just a few verses, 8 through 11 here, just to get us started. This was Joshua's first job. And it wasn't that it was necessarily a glamorous job, but this was his first job. It said, whenever Moses went out to the tent of meeting, all the people would get up and stand in the entrances of their own tents. They would all watch Moses until he disappeared inside. This tent of meeting was a place that was set up outside of camp usually, and Moses would go out there regularly, and God would come and meet with Moses in this tent. Now, not everybody could go to the tent. Not everybody could go into the tent. Only Moses. And so people, when they saw him heading that way, hey, he's walking down the road, he's headed out to the tent, they would just stand at their houses and they would watch. So they would all watch until Moses disappeared inside. Verse 9. And he went into the tent. The pillar of cloud would come down and hover at its entrance while the Lord spoke with Moses. When the people saw the cloud at the entrance of the tent, they knew that God was there. When they saw it at the end, they would stand and bow down in front of their own tents. Inside the tent of meeting, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as one speaks to a friend. Afterward, Moses would return to the camp. But get this, but the young man who assisted him, Joshua, would remain behind in the tent of meeting. Joshua was around God regularly. Joshua was so close to Moses that, and here's what's really cool about Joshua, that wasn't his job. Back in that day, if you were of this tribe, your job was this. If you were of this tribe, your job was that. He wasn't of the tribe that should have been his job, but God appointed him for Moses, and he was Moses' second in command. And so he would go out there with Moses, and Moses would meet with God face to face. And then as Moses would leave, he would stay back and protect the tent of meeting. He would take care of it. He would clean it up. He would do all of those things around this place where God came every day. And Joshua would go on to win battle after battle after battle after battle. He was a warrior. His name means Yahweh is salvation. So every time they would go into battle, Joshua knew that it was God that was winning the battle. Yahweh is the salvation, not Joshua is the salvation. And so he would meet with God regularly. You and I have an incredible opportunity and privilege in our day and time. Prayer is free. 24/7, 365. It doesn't close. It doesn't close on Christmas. It doesn't close for Easter. It doesn't go on vacation for a week. Prayer is always open. And you and I have no reason not to pray except for our own excuses. We have an incredible opportunity to meet with God regularly through prayer. Bibles are free to open and free to read, and if you don't even want to go buy a Bible, you can get it on your iPhone now for free with YouVersion. You can listen. And guess what? For you guys, and you're like me, hey, I don't like to read. It even has the Audible button. You just push a button, and some sweet voice comes on there and goes, "And in the day that Moses died." Blah, blah. You don't even have to read the Bible. You can listen to the Bible. You can take it and plug it in while you go work out, while you go on your walk. There's no reason, no excuse for not getting into the Word of God. Devotionals are online like crazy. I send one out 5 days a week. It's free. In fact, you don't have to wait for me to send up. You can go there and get the app on your phone. And every day you'll get this devotional in there. You can get devotionals in your email box. And if that isn't enough, and if that isn't enough opportunity for you and I, you can go to Lifeway. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Bibles that they'll be glad to sell you. We have no reason for not meeting with God regularly other than our own excuses. But if you're going to be a man of God, you're going to have to meet with God regularly. And if you're here today, ladies, and you're single and someday you may be looking, that might be something you want to look into as you start dating, as you start asking those questions, as you start finding out about each other. Because I'm going to tell you that if he's not meeting with God regularly, he's not going to be your godly man. So if we're going to be a man of God, if we're going to be godly men, we have to meet with God regularly. The second letter of the acronym is A, and that means we need to be authentic. Authentic. In Numbers, there's a story with Joshua. Numbers chapter 14. Here's what happened with Joshua. It said, then the whole community began weeping aloud, and they cried all night. Their voices rose in a great chorus of protest against Moses and Aaron. If we'd only died in Egypt or even here in the wilderness, they complained. Why is the Lord taking us to the country only to have us die in battle? Our wives and our little ones will be carried off as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to return to Egypt? Then they plotted among themselves, let us choose a new leader and get back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground before the whole community of Israel. Now get this, 2 of the men who had explored the land, Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jay, tore their clothing. They said to all the people of Israel, the land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land, and the Lord is pleased with us. He will bring us safely into the land and give it to us. It's a rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. But the whole community began to talk about stoning Joshua and Caleb. They are glorious. Then the glorious presence of the Lord appeared to all the Israelites at the tabernacle. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will you people treat me with contempt? Will they never believe me, even after all the miraculous signs I have done? Joshua and Caleb, but particularly it points out here, Joshua was pleading with the people to obey God. They had sent 12 spies into the land, and all 12 had came back with the same pro list. Man, the vegetation there, the fruit trees there, the river that just runs through. I mean, it's going to be a great place to be. But 10 of the guys said, the people that live there now are too big for us. The people that live there now, there's no way we could go up against them in battle. And only 2 people, Joshua and Caleb, said, the Lord has promised it to us. The Lord has told us to go. Let's go and take the land. You see, in your life, if you're to be a man of God, there are going to be some defining moments. There are going to be some moments in your life when you will either just sort of cower to the culture or cower to society when you know it's wrong. There are going to be some times when you don't say anything because you don't want to feel like that you're going to stir up a mess. There's going to be times when things are going to be happening at your job that you know are not right or not ethical. And instead of saying anything or reporting it or doing what's right, you're going to look the other way. But if you're going to be a man of God, there are going to be those times when you're going to be authentic. There's going to be those times when you stand up for what you know is right. It is hard in our world today for men to be authentic. It really is. Every man, just about to the person, wears a mask. It is hard in our society for men to be authentic, and it's really hard. It's almost impossible to get Christian men to be authentic. Because as Christian men, we're all supposed to have it all together, right? Hey, if I'm a Christian, I've got God. Certainly everything in my life is got to be going great. Certainly I'm not having any struggles. Certainly I'm not having any temptation. Certainly nothing's going on in my life. But if you're going to be a man of God, we have to be authentic. God doesn't play with masks. God's not interested in a masquerade ball at His church. God doesn't play with masks. Jesus did not die for facades. And the Holy Spirit cannot work in a house, a body of lies. If we're going to be men of God, we have to meet with God regularly. And we have to be authentic. I know that that's one of the desires of Matt Topping, our men's director. He and I talk regularly, and one of his deepest desires is that the men of our church, and that would even reach outside of our church, would come to a place that they felt like that, hey, I could say I don't have it all together, and that would be okay. We have to be authentic if we're going to be men of God. We can't play the lie. We can't throw the facade out there. We can't play the role when there's nothing inside of it. We have to be authentic. Now, something cool happens to Joshua in Numbers chapter 27. Numbers chapter 27. What I'm trying to show you here is what we're looking at here is a life, not just a moment. We're not just looking at one story where Joshua did the right thing, but what we're looking at is snapshots of his life where he consistently did the right thing, where he consistently did the godly thing. Numbers 27 and verse 12 says this. It says, "One day the Lord said to Moses, 'Climb on the mountains east of the river and look out over the land I've given to the people of Israel. After you have seen it, you will die like your brother Aaron, for you both rebelled against my instructions in the wilderness of Zin. When the people of Israel rebelled, you failed to demonstrate my holiness to them at the waters.' Then Moses said to the Lord, 'O Lord, you are the God who gives breath to all creatures. Please appoint a new man as leader for the community. Give them someone who will guide them wherever they go and will lead them into battle, so the communities of the Lord will not be like sheep without a shepherd.' Verse 18, the Lord replied, 'Take Joshua, son of Nun, who has the Spirit in him, and lay your hands on him. Present him to Eleazar the priest before the whole community, and publicly commission him to lead the people. Transfer some of your authority to him so the whole community of Israel will obey him. When direction from the Lord is needed, Joshua will stand before Eleazar the priest, who will use the Urim, one of the sacred lots cast before the Lord, to determine his will. This is how Joshua and the rest of the community of Israel will determine everything they should do." So Joshua was this guy who met with God regularly, who was faithful to obey God's commands, who was authentic when he pleaded with the people and said, "No, let's go and let's take it." And because of that, and because Moses cowered to the people, the Lord said, "Moses, you and your brother are going to die. You will not enter the land." And Joshua is going to now be the leader to take the people into the land. See, sometimes we read stories in the Bible, and if you turn to Numbers 27, you would say, man, Joshua really lucked out, didn't he? He just got the charmed life. He's got the leadership role. That worked out really good for Joshua. And some of us would go, but it never works out that way for me. What I'm trying to show you today through Joshua's life is this is a pattern of his life. He is consistently being a godly man. He's not perfect, but he's consistently being a man of God. That leads me to the third letter of the acronym, and that is this: never forget from where you came, but never go back. Never forget from where you came, but never go back. Hey, there's that old hymn, I was sinking deep in sin, right? Far from the peaceful shore. And what happened? Love lifted me. Love lifted me. So remember where I came from, but never go back. Hey, there was a time I was wandering from God and He came and found me like one of His lost sheep. There was a time when I was rebellious and Lord God's love just sort of patiently waited. There was times when I was spiritually blind and then was given new sight. Joshua knew who he was. He knew where he came from. But now that he was the leader, he wasn't going to just sift back to what he used to be. Deuteronomy goes through several different stories about Joshua getting ready to lead these people into the land. And in Joshua chapter 1, here's what it says. Be strong and courageous. This is, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I swore to their ancestors I would give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the instructions Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything you do. Study this book. Remember we talked about meet with God. Study this book of instruction continually. Meditate on it day and night, so you will be sure to obey everything written in it. Only then will you prosper and succeed in all that you do. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua was a godly man. Joshua was somebody that if you want to just go and take and read his whole story or go get a Bible study and just dive deeper into his life, as a man, he's somebody that we could sort of emulate in our lives. He had a family. He had a job. He had responsibilities. And yet he was, in all of that, able to serve and obey God. Now I'm trying to get us somewhere, and here's where I'm trying to get us to today. There's one verse that Joshua speaks in the Bible that so many of us run to. I use it a lot. It is a favorite verse of mine. We use it when we do baby dedications here a lot, and so you've heard this verse a lot. But here's the point I want to make to you. The verse I'm about to read is coming at the end of Joshua's life. After consistently, for many years, serving God faithfully. Here's what he says in Joshua 24. He says, so fear the Lord and serve Him wholeheartedly. Put away forever the idols of that your ancestors worshipped when they lived beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt. Serve the Lord alone. But if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. Would you prefer the gods of your ancestors served before the Euphrates, or will it be the gods of the Amorites in whose land you now live? And here's what Joshua says. As for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. A lot had happened in Joshua's life. A lot of little pictures we took, snapshots, moments when Joshua could have cowered to the crowd, moments when Joshua could have went with the popular vote, times when Joshua could have said, you know what, I know that's not right, but I don't want to stir up a pot, and so I'm just going to let it rest. But snapshot after snapshot after snapshot after snapshot, Joshua declares, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I believe that most men here today, regardless of what defines your house, Maybe you're here today and you're a single guy, and that's your house. Maybe you're here today and you're married. Maybe you're here today and you're single. Maybe you're here today and you have some kids. Maybe you're here today and you don't have any kids yet. I think many of the men in here today would want to say, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And if you're going to do that, you're going to have to meet with God regularly. You're going to have to be authentic. And you're going to have to remember from where you came, but you don't ever have to go back there. I believe if we could do that, we could have a house that serves the Lord. It's never too late to start. It's never too late to start. Could today be the day that some of you declare, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord? Let's pray.